on here dreaming about you.
Hey guys, SimCoder here, and today we are going to start working on our settings activity. And in this lesson specifically, we are going to create the activity, and we are going to make it so that we are able to choose a background image for our home screen. So yeah, there's a couple of things that we have to do. We have to get permissions and all of that, but as the lesson progresses, we'll talk more about it. So let's go and jump right into our clone. This is where we left off in the last lesson. So the first thing that we are going to do is to go into the ActivityMain. I'm going to make it a tiny bit bigger, and we are going to add a layout to this frame layout right here, the bottom sheet behavior. So I'm going to add, you can think of it as a tab that will go in here on top, and it will have all of the buttons that we need, and we'll be able to scroll the tab and open and close it much easier. So let's do it. And let's say linear layouts, match parents, wrap contents, and we are going to place the grid view inside it as well. I'm going to make these a bit smaller. Okay, tab it and say that the orientation will be vertical, because everything will be contained inside these linear layouts. And now let's say again linear, I'm actually going to copy all of this, so linear layouts, but this time it will be horizontal, because it will be, this linear layout will be for the tab that I was talking about, and you'll see it in a second, so don't worry. Let's close this. Okay, and let's simply place an image button in here. So let's say wrap contents, and let's give it a source, which is an image, which I'm going to pick, I don't know, Android, drawable. I see menu edit. Okay, that's good enough. You can change it and place whatever you'd like in here. It doesn't really matter. Then settings. And I'm actually going to give an ID to these linear layouts of the tab. So I'm going to give it a space in here, and I'm going to say ID top drawer layout. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we are going to get the height of these layouts, so that we can make it so that the drawer peak height is equal to the height of this layout right here. So that's why I'm doing it. So now we can jump right into our main activity, and the first thing that we are going to do is to again get the height of that layout. So that's really easy to do. We are simply going to say final linear layout and top drawer layout equals to find view by ID r dots top drawer layout. Okay, and we can't simply do m top drawer layout dot get height or something like that, because we are calling this in the onCreate method. And the problem with that is that in the onCreate method, things take time to draw onto the screen. And because they take time, while we are calling the get height might still be 0, because it might happen that it hasn't been drawn yet. And because of that, we must do kind of a trick, which is mDrawer layout.post new runnable, and it will create a method for you. And this runnable will get the height. So let's say drawer peak height equals to m top drawer layout dot get height, and with this we can be sure that we'll get the right height of the drawer top bar. So let's simply grab these functions and paste them here, because only when we get the drawer peak height can we actually go ahead and fill up everything else, because there are things inside both initialize home and initialize drawer that depend on this peak height. Okay, so that's that. We don't need to worry about anything else. I'm going to remove these functions, these calling for functions right here, and I'm going to get the image button. So let's say mSettings, oops, settings equals to find view by ID or .id.settings. Now let's say mSettings dot sets on click listener new on click listener, and in here we'll place an intent for the settings activity, which we haven't created yet. So there are a couple of things that we have to do before we actually call the intent. But before that, I'm going to, because I was forgetting, we must do something with the drawer peak height, which is to go below. And in here there is an error, which in here it is state collapsed. I must have forgot about this in the last lesson. I can't really remember right now, but don't worry, simply change that. And scrolling down a bit, we have the collapsed drawer. And now the collapsed drawer set mDrawer grid view set y must be set to the drawer peak height, otherwise the drawer grid view will be on top of the top drawer layout. So this is really important, make sure you do that. And now let's scroll up again and let's create a new activity. So let's go new activity, empty activity, and let's say settings activity. Okay, this will create everything for you, and now we are able to come in here and to actually call these activities. So let's say intent equals to new intent, and now we simply pass the get application context and the class that we want to go to, in this case settings activity dot class. And I'm actually going to remove this variable. We don't really need to create a variable, so yeah, let's go with this. So let's say start activity, new intent, wherever. Close that, and now we can collapse that. It will look much nicer. Okay, all in one line, that's good. And yeah, so apart from that, this is done. We don't need to worry about the main activity anymore, except for when we want to set the image. But first, before setting it, we must get it. And so it is really simple. Let's go into settings activity and take care of the layout. Settings, let's organize this, okay. And for the layout, I'm going to do something really simple. So I'm going to change this for a linear layout because it is a bit easier to work with. It might not look as good, but yeah, it gets the job done. And let's create another linear layout that will contain the part of the background image. So match parent, wrap content, and the orientation will be set to horizontal. Now we'll have an image view to display the image. So let's say width, wrap content, and height 75 SP. Let's put a scale type of center crop, yeah, whatever, and adjust view bound set to true. Now let's set the background image, which can be this. It really doesn't matter, it's just something to fill up so that we can know exactly what's there. And then, most importantly, let's set the ID, which will be on screen image. Okay, now let's place a view in here, which is something just to fill up the space, because I don't want the button to be right next to the image. It looks much better if it is on the other side of this layout. So this is why I'm creating this view, which will have a weight, which means it will fill up the entirety of the layout, apart from if we place something in the end. In that case, it will simply push it out of the way and make so that it is in the end of the layout. So let's say wrap content, layout gravity will be center vertical, and text, let's say change image. Okay, the ID again important. Let's say home screen button, and now let's simply add a margin to all of this. So margin 20 sp. Yeah, that's good enough. And yeah, so now the layout is done. We can move on to the settings activity. And in here it will be really simple. We simply have to make a call for an intent that will get that will open up the user's gallery and then save it to some kind of file, which we'll figure that out in a second. So let's simply create an image view in here, image view and home screen image. Don't forget to import everything with Alt Enter. And now let's jump into the onCreate method and say button and home screen button equals to findViewID.id dot home screen button. Import button as well. And now do the same thing for the home screen image. Okay. And now let's simply do and set on click listener for the button. So new on click listener. And now we are, as I was saying, going to create an intent that will make a call for the gallery. So I'll take you step by step on how to do this. Let's first of all create a variable of the type intent. Intent goes to new intent. And now we'll, instead of passing an activity as we normally do with intents, we are going to say what we want to do with it. In this case, we want to make the user pick something, pick an image in this case. So action slash underscore, I believe that's what's called, action pick. Okay. And now we'll set up the type of object or whatever, the type of data that we want to get. And in this case, it is an image. So we say set type between quotes image slash asterisk, saying all types of images, JPEG, PNG, whatever. Simply get me an image. Now we'll say start activity for result. Start activity. Oops. For result, there it is. And simply say intent. And now the request code, which I'm going to place it right here. So int request code image. And I'm going to set it to 1. And this request code is what, because this intent for result, I'm going to start from the beginning. The start activity for result will try to get us an image from the gallery. And then it will return to us the result, and attached to it is the request code image, which in this case is 1. And we must have that, because if we had some other start activity for results in this settings activity, which we actually might have in the future, then we would get data, but we wouldn't know why we asked for it and where did we ask for it, and as a result we wouldn't know what type of data it is, and so on and so forth. You get the point. And so this request code is always attached to the intent that we just started, or activity that we just started, and that way we'll easily figure out what why is that data being returned to us. Okay, so as I was saying, it returns to us the data, and it returns to us the data in a method called on activity result. Okay, as simple as that. And in here we are simply going to say if, and it might be a switch, but because we only have one activity for result, I'm going to go with a simple if request code, which is this right here, is equal to the request code image, which is 1, and the result code equals to activity dot result OK, then we are able to get the URI, and the URI is, you can think of it as an URL, is a more generalized URL, so it points to a location in something, we don't care. Okay, URI, and it is like this, image URI, and you must import this class, so okay, equals to data dot get data, and the data is something that's passed along in here, and then we simply say HomeScreen dot set image URI image URI. Okay, as simple as that. And now when we click the HomeScreen button and choose an image, then the image will appear in the image view that we have right here. Okay, so that was the goal, and that's how it's meant to be. And now we can move on to the how can we save this image URI into our phone, into our app. How can we remember that the user wants this image to be displayed in the home screen? And for that, we'll use something that's called SharedPrefs, which is just something that's, instead of creating a file and having to work with a file, this simply allows us to place a string into a variable. You can remember it like this, and this variable will be forever accessible by you, by the app, and only the app. If you set the mode to private or public, you can set it to wherever, but you'll see it working in a second. So let's simply go ahead and do it. I'm going to do it right here, because right here, no, I'm going to create a function for that. Okay, private save data, and it will be void. Okay, and let's simply say shared preferences dot editor shared preferences, and you'll see this working in a second, so don't worry if you don't understand it really well. It is extremely easy. Equals to get shared preferences, and now we pass on the name of our shared preferences, which I'm going to create a global variable right here and call it my prefs name, or I'm going to remove the my, let's just say prefs name equals to prefs, whatever, it doesn't matter, or let's say nova prefs. Okay, nova prefs, prefs name, not there yet, prefs name, and let's set the mode to private so that only we can access it. No other app can access it in the entire phone. Mode private. Okay, and now let's say dot edit. And now we can add strings, add wherever we want, so I can show you right now. If we place shared preferences dot, then a series of puts appear right here. So put string, put boolean, put float, put int, put long, put string sat, for example. But we won't put string because we simply want to put the image URI. So let's say image URI, comma, image URI. And we must obviously pass along through here, so URI image URI, and it must be a string, so we simply say dot to string. And now we must apply the changes that we just made. So do this. If you don't place the apply, then nothing will happen. It won't save the string, and you'll be left off just as we started it. So yeah, that's really important. Now I'm simply going to call this function right here and do that. Okay, so it is as simple as that. Now we also want to get the image inside the settings activity so that when we come back, the image will be shown in here. Okay, and to do that, we are simply going to say private void get data. And now the logic is somewhat similar, so we have shared preferences. This time we don't have the dot editor because we are not going to edit anything. Equals to get shared preferences, prefs name, comma, mode private. And now we simply say string image URI equals to shared preferences dot get string, and we pass on the string that we want. So we want the string that has a variable name of image URI. Okay, and then we pass along the default value in case it doesn't exist already. And in this case, it will just pass along, we'll just get null. So now we say if image URI different from null, then we simply HomeScreen image dot set image URI, and now we must get this image URI and pass it and parse it to an URI, convert it better yet. So URI dot parse image URI, and it will do it for you, and it will place the image inside the HomeScreen image. Okay, let's call this inside here below everything. Okay, and okay, this looks fine, but it won't work because of one specific thing. We must get the permissions to access external storage, better yet, to read and to write. So let's go into the manifest file and say user permission name read external storage and write external storage. Okay, and we must do one other thing to get the permissions, and we'll do it in the main activity. Okay, but for now let's just assume that all of this is working just fine, even though it won't work if you do it right now because we must get permissions, and you only must do the next step when working with versions of Android bigger than Android Marshmallow, I believe, because they made some alterations to the way permissions work, and so it is a lot harder, and it isn't enough to go on the manifest file and to say that you want that permission. Okay, so now let's get out of here and get the permissions, and it is basically the last thing that we have to do. So let's go on top of the onCreate method and say get permissions, and click Alt create method, Alt Enter and create method. Okay, get permissions, and I'm going to actually drag it to the bottom because it isn't really relevant to anything. So yeah, that way we can clear up the screen for important things. Okay, and so now we simply want to get the permissions for write external storage and read external storage. So let's simply say request permissions new string Android dot manifest dot permission dot write external storage, and after that simply make a request code 1. We won't use the request code for anything, but yeah, we can add that. Surround with if, and now let's simply create it again and read external storage. Okay, and this will make a pop-up on the screen of a dialog that will ask the user for permissions to read and write to the external storage. Okay, so now we simply must do the same thing that we did in here, so we must get data. So I'm going to actually copy this function right here, place it in here on the bottom, and yeah, let's get the image that we haven't created it yet, so we must do it now. And we are going to place let me just check one thing. Okay, we are going to change this linear layout into a frame layout so that we can have overlapping objects. And let's say image view match parent with the background, again, drawable IC launcher background, doesn't matter. Let's say scale type center crop, and let's set the ID to HomeScreen image. Okay, that's it. We don't need to do anything else. Let's simply go in here and say and import the image view to our activity. So let's say first of all, let's call get data here. Okay, and let's go in here and simply say image view HomeScreen image equals to find view by ID r.id.HomeScreen image. Prefs name will be the same that we have in our settings activity, so I'm going to copy the string in here, do that. Okay, and it is set and done. There is nothing else left to do except for trying out the app and see if everything checks out. So I'm going to quickly run it and see if any errors pop up. Okay, so I launched the app and I detected one minor thing that I forgot, and it is that I'm going to scroll to the bottom and I'll explain it. So whenever we choose an image and get back to this activity, so we press back on the settings activity, then the background image wouldn't update right away. And that's because it only gets data one time. So what I'm going to do is say on resume, simply get data. Okay, and this way it will, I'm going to simply to launch the app, and this way it will try to get data anytime you get out of the settings activity, and that way this error will disappear obviously. Okay, so now here we are in our app, and as you can see, this dialog pop up saying that we want to access photos, media, and files on your device, and so I'm going to allow it, obviously. And as you can see, there's an image in the overlapping, or better yet, in the background of the grid, home screen grid. I'm going to, as you can see, you can drag this beautifully. I'm going to the settings activity, and I'm going to click on change image. I'm going to choose one of these, doesn't matter, it changes. I'm going back, and boom, we have the home screen image set. And if we get out of it, then we expect that the image will continue there. So I'm going to go into our app, Novel Ensure app, and there we go. And if you come in here, the image shows again. So it is working just fine. We are now going to start developing the settings and choosing the number of rows, number of columns, things like that. There are one of the things that I most enjoy about Novel Launcher, which like launchers like Eevee, I believe that's how it is called, already have, and it is truly awesome and useful to have. So that's it for today. I hope this series is being good for you. If it is, then consider donating or simply hitting the subscribe button helps tremendously. So yeah, I hope to see you again tomorrow, and ciao.